Right, I'm back. This BZR 1986. Um, I've been saying I was gonna do this video for a while. For a while, as in like it's probably been about 8 or 9 days since they put out since Undisputed put out the reasons why they delayed the patch, and this video is going to be about the dev roundtables. Obviously, the roundtable videos are pretty long, so I'm not going to play the entire roundtable videos, but I am going to play a good portion of the past two roundtables, uh, and we're going to talk about some things that Undisputed, at Play Undisputed, that they've promised to be coming out in the next patch, which I'm guessing should be January. It would be nice if it was the first week of January, but I'm betting it's gonna be more like the first week of February before the patch comes out. But we're gonna talk about some of the promises, um, of the things that are said to be in the game, coming to the game. Who knows what all is gonna be in the patch? Who knows? Uh, we're gonna watch. We had two roundtables and no patch so far, so we're gonna watch some of that and we're gonna talk about it. All right, here we go. Everybody's favorite subject, damage. Let's start right there.
Awesome. And one of the things I think also that can impact where we get with AI is like I think probably one of the biggest persistent discussions in the community, and that's around damage and how damage happens in our game, with players really wanting uh, risk and reward to feel like much more consequential. I made a mistake, I gotta pay for it. If I make a mistake, a few times, I'm done, right? And obviously, making those kind of changes and on the balance side can impact the AI as well. But I'm hoping you could talk a little bit first about like, so we'll talk about damage, and there's a few different points of that discussion, but I thought maybe we could start about just like, can we talk about just what the goal is, right? Like, what is the goal on how you want damage to and that risk reward to be in the game? Because we sometimes hear these questions about, well, wait a minute, did you guys change it? Do you want it to be less for, more forgiving now? Do you want it to be more like arcade? And I just want to make sure that we're totally clear about what it is that you want that to look like and what you think good looks like.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think my decision on this hasn't changed from the very first moment, we started to make this game, right? Where um, if you make a mistake, the game should punish you for that, right? And whether that means somebody's slipped your punch and come back with a counter and either knocked you out or knocked you down. I think that's kind of where I need the game to be. So yeah, absolutely, we're not heading down, the arcade route or anything like that. I think, sometimes, um, there's a large audience in terms of, what kind of games people like, right? Whether it's just a game where they can go and throw 1,000 punches and have a 12 round fight, or there's players who just want a 1 or 2 round blast out. And I think for us, it's just finding that balance between a game where it will punish you for.
And that's interesting what he just said right there. Some people want a 12 round fight. Some people want or one or two, 1 to 3 round, blast out. Um, that's very true, and I think that feeling that some players don't want to go 12 rounds. They don't want to have the full boxing experience. I think that comes from the popularity of UFC, and if they want something like that, I'm sure that Undisputed could implement some different game mode with crazy high damage or whatever for the people that want that particular feeling. That's very interesting that he said that. I just recently played UFC 5, and that was something that one of my buddies said, like, in the amount of time that did you spend playing one match boxing? He's like, man, you could have had like 10 fights or something like that. So yeah, that's something to, just as far as, making the mainstream audience happy, that's something they could do, put in the game, down the line. That has nothing to do with this video, but that is something that they could do down the line.
For throwing a power shot and somebody coming back with a counter, or if you've gassed yourself out, you're more susceptible to getting knocked out. I think for us it's absolutely about trying to reflect the sport, where if you just kind of going all guns blazing, you should be prepared to get knocked out. I think that's kind of the game that we're making.
Right.
But
we're
look, I
not
can
there.
understand why.
Yeah,
Understand
but
why
we're not
people need
there.
to
But we're
see
not
that.
there yet. So let's talk about what some of those things are. Right? There's a few different steps and things that, and some of them we've talked about. Right? But like one step that we made in this last update, which maybe was a small step, but did see some impact, is like we talk a lot about Wilder, right? Because if you think about that fighter that can make a mistake against them and they blast you out of there, that's the guy that you think of, right? And we've talked a bunch about here over the last few months and on the roundtable, like he's kind of one of the people that we look at to understand how that's going. So we made some changes to him. We put these traits on him, right? That I'd like to have you talk about.
And overall, when you really look at Wilder's fight style and the way people play Wilder's in the game currently right now, I'd say they pretty much hit the nail on the head. If you're willing to fight that way, and an opponent eats those punches, you're gonna get up out of there.
And he's now winning in that update 12% more of his fights. He's knocking people out in those fights 23% more often. So moving in the right direction, but not totally there. Let's talk about first about the trait system. How does it work, and what can we expect to see?
So we've now built out the trait system to have three tiers. So there's a tier one, tier two, and a tier three, and essentially each tier is more dangerous than the previous one. And the reason why we wanted to have more tiers is because we wanted the fighters.
Also, this right here, the trait system upgrade with the 1, 2, 3 tiers, it's definitely noticeable, and it does change the way the fighters feel and the way the fighters perform. Um, depending upon like how deep you get into this game. If you're really playing this game a lot and you're really paying attention, it does change the fighting style. Absolutely. So, good job.
To feel more unique as well. So, take for example Joe Frazier with the smoking left hook break. Um, there's obviously a lot of boxers in the game who have got very strong left hooks, so they're known to have powerful left hooks, right? So, Tommy Morrison, for example. But I guess I would argue there's probably not, you know, Joe Frazier's probably got one of the most lethal left hooks in boxing. So, we wanted to differentiate the traits between those boxers. So, yeah, as an example, Joe Frazier will have the level 3 of the left hook trait compared to the boxers who might have a level 1 or a level 2. So, I think what that does is just gives us a huge amount of freedom in terms of making sure certain fighters feel, different compared to others. And, for example, Deontay Wilder, with his right hand bomb trait, he's going to be at a level 3, compared to somebody else who might have a level 1 or a 2. So I just think it gives, builds out that freedom. But it also, the decisions we're making as well is also having an impact and, improving the career mode that's coming on down the line.
Yeah, and so we'll see more fighters, with those different levels of traits on them moving forward. Then.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the next update, people can expect to see, a lot of fighters having essentially an updated pass on all the traits that they have.
Okay, so that's one thing. What are some of the other things that we're doing to make that risk reward, make that consequence happen?
So, whether it's the amount of damage taken from a counter, whether it's the amount of damage taken from a power shot that's landed clean, We are looking at critical zones because the game does have critical zones. Whether you hit on the on the chin or on the temple, um, it makes a difference whether it's a glancing blow or not. So, we're making some changes in terms of how.
And that right there, that's something that a lot of players don't pay attention to. Um, Hitting the critical zone, and he said glancing blow or not. One thing that really affects whether or not you're hitting the critical zones or it's a glancing blow or not is clearly accuracy. And guess what? The high level fighters, the 90 overalls and up, they have very high accuracy and they are more likely to hit the critical zone flush, no glance and blow.
How the whole damage zones work on the face as well. Because we want people to be rewarded by throwing an accurate shot, right? Especially if it's following up from a counter or a power shot that's also a counter as well. So, we're making these changes. And there's also things around like some of the stuns and the hit reactions that we're working on right now. Because I think we've made the game built around the movement of the fighters. It's very fluid, but at the same time, we're going to try and make it feel like a more of a controlled fight. And that's only going to help when it comes to things like making decisions and some of the shots feel more meaningful. So yeah, those changes will be coming not only in the next update, but obviously further updates beyond that because we
Yeah.
do have a number of changes that we'll be
So,
making.
so for the sake of clarity, when you talk about controlled, right, you're talking about things like, oh, I've got hit with a really big shot. I probably can't immediately then return fire as if nothing happened, right? Because then it just feels like something consequential hasn't happened to me, right? I haven't actually paid. Like, you want somebody to have the awareness, like, one, of like, I just made something really good happen, right, to my opponent. And if you're the opponent, you want them to feel like, oh, I messed up, right? I can't immediately, just punch, right? So you say more control, just like that, sort of like less chaotic in terms of like your ability to just immediately take an action when you've actually kind of been buzzed or hit with a big shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing: if you play the game as a boxer, you don't your fight doesn't usually play out like that, right? Where you're just
Right.
throwing punch after punch after punch. But having seen people play the game, some fights do look like it's just a little bit too chaotic, where yeah, they're just kind of like swinging wildly, and you're kind of thinking, well, how realistic is that? So absolutely, we're introducing things like hit stuns, where if you've been hit with a counter or a big shot, then you're not able to just immediately carry on throwing punches, and then that kind of feels more rewarding to the other player who's landed that shot, right? So there's things like that we're looking at, and the vulnerability system that we've spoken about before. That's going through a phase right now where we're just building that out. So again, it's making people think before they throw a punch, where if you get hit, whilst throwing a punch or mid punch, then there's consequences to that. So that's the direction we're taking with the game. So it's not necessarily slowing the pace down a little bit, but it's just almost forcing people to think about what they're going to throw.
Yeah.
So it most definitely will slow the pace down, and it most definitely will make people think before they throw when hit stuns are introduced into the game and you get pieced up, once, twice, or whatever. The third time, you're probably going to get knocked out. It most definitely will change the pacing of the game, but I think it'll change the pacing of the game for the better. I think that's why, you know, like I said, UFC 5, UFC 4 is a popular thing right now, and people do like that quick, 1, 2, 3 rounds, maybe 5 round fight. A lot of people may not be uh, may not realize that maybe they like UFC more than boxing, or maybe they're not as much as a boxing fan as they think they are, or maybe they just don't have the patience for boxing, or I'm not really sure what it is. Time, people have low attention spans. I'm not really sure what it is, but there definitely is a theme with 12 plus rounds of boxing and shorter fights like UFC or any other fighting game that may be, something like a Street Fighter or whatever, like a shorter period of time.
Or react to what's happened, right? And be thoughtful about it. I want to talk about stamina next, right? It feels like damage and stamina. Those are kind of like that's like the two-headed dragon that we come in here in the round table and talk about when it's balanced every time. What do you think, Jeremy? I want to have you talk about where you feel like players feel like we're at right now, and then I want Ash to talk a bit about what we're shipping in the next update to hopefully move us forward with stamina.
Gotcha. I feel like as far as
We
the
can
community is
we can go ahead and skip a little bit of this. Let me see what he's talking about right here.
Going to change beginning in the next update.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the next update coming, each weight class will have its own stamina kind of calculation. So, essentially, bantamweight will be able to throw a different amount of punches compared to a heavyweight, and that was something that we've been meaning to implement for a little while now. So, yeah, I'm glad to say that that's coming in the next update. So, stamina will definitely feel different to everybody playing the game, where I guess I can kind of already say.
And I can't wait to see this because I mean, if you're used to playing this game at, lightweight or welterweight and then you go into middleweight or heavyweight, the game is noticeably different. Just in especially middleweight. Middleweight seems to be the slowest fighters. I don't know why. It just seems to be like they have the heaviest gravity to the boxers. You would think it would be heavyweight, but it's actually middleweight. And the welterweight and the lightweight guys, they move pretty good. They have pretty good balance and stuff like that. It's actually pretty surprising. So they do feel different as far as just the fighters, the way they move, how fast they swing, their foot speed. But he's also talking about bringing in a punch counter basically. Heavy guys punch less, lighter guys punch more. So
That gone are the days where you can throw 600 punches and end up with 90% stamina. So yeah, we're very confident in terms of the next update coming in terms of the changes we've made to stamina. So yeah, the punches will definitely have an impact on your stamina now, and obviously going to the body will have more of an impact as well. So there's some stamina changes coming, but again, like with a lot of things that we're doing right now, it's not going to be like, okay, stamina's done in the next update and that's it. It'll be the first of continual changes, but the next one's going to be pretty meaningful as far as stamina is concerned.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that feedback, especially obviously you think about online play where so many of the fights happen in the heavyweight division, which will be most impacted, right? Because they're going to be the ones to take the biggest hit if it were or as it were. It'll be interesting to see how people feel about that and have some conversation about where they think it's at. Okay, old school move set. So I'd love to hear a little bit about this, Ash. And it sounded like we accidentally put this live a little bit in one of the earlier updates, and then brought it out. Although, from what I understood, Jeremy, I think people actually kind of liked what they saw. So we're hopefully feeling good about that. Tell us about what does it look like? What's the purpose, Ash? And then we can talk about who will see it on in the next update.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess
what would have been cool about the old school moveset is like they walk different, behave a little bit more different. But would have been cool if they had if the old school fighters had a totally different, punch, punch animation, setup. If theirs was just completely different from the new fighters, that would be cool too, because obviously, different eras, they did things differently than, new school versus old school. So that would have been cool to at least give them, something. Maybe not the whole toolbox retooled, but maybe half. Some half.
I guess first of all, as far as the mistake goes, not hiding behind the small indie studio banner, but yeah, we've made a few mistakes, right? And we hold our hands up to when we make them. So this one was actually unintended. I still remember the shock of when I think Alex mentioned to me that Rocky Marciano, what happened? What happened there? So yeah, look, I think the purpose for us was, again, we're really happy with how our fighters move in the game. The motion capture we've done with our fighters, but at the same time, the authenticity around it, right? We've got the likes of Rocky Marciano in the game, and many of the legends that will be coming in down the line. So I think the important thing I've spoken about this quite a bit before is about doing justice to these guys, and part of that is making them look like how they fought as well. So I think for me, it was important to try and replicate how fighters fought in the older era.
Just a little bit.
Monster, but a three-headed monster. The third head that we talk about in the round table, right, will always be front foot fighting versus back foot fighting. How we're trying to balance that. We have a lot of talk usually.
This is still not corrected. This is, there'll be more talk about this in the next videos. Still not corrected, but let's listen.
Hear about a step back straight and how people feel about that. And last time I know we talked about putting diagonal dodge in being sort of a first step about that. How do we feel like that's going so far? I'll start with you, Jeremy.
Well, it's definitely it's definitely less spammable. Like, I just can't do them back to back to back to back to back. I think actually before I got on the team, I made a short video.
Let's get to about right here.
Punches from foot, back foot, or even stationary. We're not finished by any stretch in terms of how the punches are looking, or the punches that are currently in the game right now. So we do have plans to have more motion capture sessions with fighters coming into the studio. So we do have more of those planned where we will be
peep that out. I've told people that they're gonna bring they will be bringing more punches into the game. So he says it right there. It's gonna be more punches, because they're gonna be doing more mocap,
placing and changing some of the punches in the game. Whether they're the front foot punches or whether they're the back foot punches. So yeah, I think that is something that we're looking forward to in terms of just improving what we've got. It has taken us a bit of time to get to where we are right now in terms of making the punches look impactful and meaningful. But yeah, in terms of the back foot straight, that is something that we are looking to change out. So yeah, the motion capture sessions we've got planned, we know exactly what we need to get out of them.
Yeah, and it feels a little bit like because we have all of these different punches that we've recorded in the game, sometimes we'll swap a punch in, for another one, or something that we think, looks or feels a little bit better. And sometimes we're swapping out a punch because we think this punch is more effective. In this case, we maybe be swapping out a punch for something that we think is too effective, or doesn't, with that step back straight where it doesn't look quite the way that we'd want it to. It doesn't feel, what we don't want, right, is for it to feel like this is the get me out of jail button, right, to hit. We want it to feel a little bit more, you have to be thoughtful about it, right? Because obviously, Jeremy, you're talking about like the part that's like, okay, well, now I've got this one thing, I've got this one other thing I can use against it, so that's better, right? In terms of the balance. But now it's about like, let's make it feel more authentic, and hopefully, mocaps is tricky, right, Ash? Like, we don't necessarily, it's not there's a bit of an art to it, right? And it's not always easy to predict maybe exactly, until we get that stuff in the game and polish it up, exactly how it's going to play out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, as a, having, not done this before, right, in terms of the motion capture side of things, the consensus was, or the assumption was, we get world champions in, and they can do the motion capture, and everything's perfect, right? But it turns out it doesn't work that way. So yeah, just because you might have a boxer who's an undefeated world champion, and there's probably 4 or 5 world champions we've brought into the studio that have done the motion capture for us. Um, it doesn't always work out where in the ring it might look great, but as far as a video game goes, might not look perfect. So I guess the easiest way I can explain that is, you know, if you just take any random jab or a hook that a fighter throws in the ring, um, that might not be the most perfect jab or hook that person's ever thrown. So, you replicate that and say, okay, we're going to use a jab, we're going to use a hook from, this guy who's like, 35 wins, no losses, and, is the perfect fighter in the ring. You take that punch and you then replicate it for a boxer in the game, and it's not the perfect looking punch, or it's not the most ideal punch as far as the
Sure.
game goes.
Sure.
So
Or
it's just
where it has
context
to
like
go
that.
on, or where it has to go on different fighters, right? Because like I think part of the issue with step back straight, right, is that like you can use that on a really with a really big fighter, right? Where maybe somebody that size you would think is not agile enough to do the way that the animation plays out, right? And so it's just that variety of it, that you need to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm confident with the motion capture sessions we've got now, where we know exactly what we're looking to get out of these. Where in the past it was almost a case of, well, look, these guys are the experts, they know boxing, right? Who are we to tell them anything? But I think it's just finding that balance between what works in the ring might not always work in a video game.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this has been a topic that's bubbled up, especially recently, is around, well, it's sort of two things, right? One of them is around game speed and the movement speed of fighters, with players feeling like it's faster than it was, say, in the online betas that we did last year. And then secondary to that, but related, is if you get to the side of somebody, if you're moving laterally and you get to the side of somebody, players feeling like your opponent snaps to you much faster than they did in the past. And I'm wondering, are these things that we're aware of? Are they things that we're looking at? And how do we feel about what we want that to look like in our game? What does good look like there?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, in terms of the rotation and the movement speed, both of those actually are topics that we're looking at right now. And the reason why I guess these things have changed over time is taking the rotation, for example. That was something that was done, whilst before we launched into early access, right? So it was a period between, the beta and the early access launch where we were making a few changes. And actually, what transpired there was a bug that was logged where, on a couple of occasions you were able to get completely behind the opponent,
Yeah.
which didn't look too great, and then it caused the other opponent to kind of snap towards you. So to negate that, or to actually fix that bug, the rotations were tightened so that that scenario was could never happen again. But I think I guess as far as balancing goes with the rest of the game, right? There's times where maybe we've probably taken something a little bit too far, just to completely negate the negative side of what could potentially happen. So what we're looking to do is bring some of that back, right? So whilst it might not be exactly how it was in the beta, because obviously we don't want situations where you're completely behind somebody. Um, we've probably taken that a little bit too far, so we'll be looking to bring that back a little bit.
Yeah, and I think people like that one, right? Because when we talk about the risk,
And that's a pretty interesting one because, like, obviously you don't want to be center line and you want to be able to, like, get out the way of punches so that you can punch somebody, but you also don't want to be able to get behind the opponent. Um, and there's still like a it's not a game breaking bug, but it's still like a bug in the game where the fighters, if they're sidestepping each other, spinning, and they get too close, the camera gets all out of whack and it goes back together. So it'll be interesting to see, what their overall fix is going to be to the rotation, as they call it.
Reward and things feeling consequential. You want to feel rewarded for getting to an advantageous position, right? And I think that's what that's about. And how about more specifically to the movement speed? I mean, so you talked about the snapping. Like, do you believe it feels different than it did 8-9 months ago when we did the beta?
You see, it's a tough one, right? Because I think going through an iterative process, sometimes it's difficult to see kind of how something was 8 or 9 months ago if you've made very small incremental changes along that path, right? So having looked at the footage and the game previously, it is apparent that the incremental changes we've made have probably felt a little bit I guess more noticeable, right? So I think with movement speed, it's something that we're looking to try and again just bring back a little bit to how it was during that beta period.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll skip ahead a little bit more.
Yeah.
Game visuals.
Players, the other thing I wanted to touch on before we hop off of here, I think we talked about a little bit on the last roundtable, is just the visuals of the game, right? So sometimes when we talk about that, we're talking about fighters, and you've talked about things like the amount of sweat or lighting or things that make a fighter look differently. We've talked about venues, and more specifically, we talked about, hey, players believe that some venues looked better 2 years ago than they look in the live game that we're shipping right now. And we said we agree. We're doing a full pass on the venues in the game. But what does that really mean, and what can players expect to see moving forward?
So there's two major things that are going to impact that actually. So one is the cameras that are currently in the game. I think footage we've shown previously, we had the cameras like almost right up to the fighters, and then that obviously shows off, the sweat, it shows off the muscle definition, it shows off the scans of the boxes that we've got, right? So I think seeing action up close definitely changes the impact and the feeling of what you're seeing visually on screen. But I think the more we played with that camera angle, I guess during the initial closed testing phases that we had with the game, we were getting a few complaints from players about the fact that because the game is so fluid and it's so free flowing, it just increased the motion sickness or the kind of experience around getting dizzy or fighters spinning around each other, because we haven't limited the player's ability to be able to do that, right? So one of the solutions basically for that was to pull the cameras out, a fair distance. So as soon as you do that, you take away, some of that visual fidelity, right? So instantly you kind of, okay, well, it doesn't look as great as it did before, but practically it's probably the better solution to take. But having said that, I was a big fan of the closer up camera. So we are looking to bring that back in. So there's right now we're going through some testing in terms of how we can potentially do that, and at the same time kind of minimize the whole kind of motion sickness around spinning around fighters, right? So that's something that we're looking at the moment. And I suppose the second thing is quite a large engine upgrade that we're just currently going through right now. So it is a significant upgrade as far as the engine goes, and as part of that upgrade there'll be some changes to the lighting in the venues. So this will be an incremental change that people will notice through the following updates. So they won't all appear in the next update, but certainly the next few updates, venues will be getting upgraded with the new lighting changes and the engine upgrade as well. So
So
something we're
I
looking
know
forward
you
to.
know what engine upgrade means, Ash, and I know what it means. But everybody that's watching might not know what it means. What does that mean? What does it mean
What
we've
does it
gone through an
mean?
engine
What does it
upgrade,
mean?
and why are we doing that?
So the engine that we're building the game on, the makers of that engine, they update that engine, right, in terms of like improving performance, improving stability, improving the amount of tools that we have to make things look better. Um, and what we don't do is we don't upgrade like as soon as an update comes out. So they might have an update every single month, right? But what we're not going to do is upgrade our engine every single month because it would just be a complete nightmare trying to do that. So, we the engine upgrade here is there's essentially like almost 2 years worth of updates to the engine as far as everything from lighting to shaders to basically how skin looks to everything that people are seeing in the game. So people can expect to see some visual improvements with the updates that we'll be making.
Awesome. We're excited for that. So I think that's it for us today. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. Uh,
Okay, so basically what he said, I've heard some people ask me about this too, or they've commented about, engine upgrades or whatnot. It's the same engine, it's just upgraded, it's they've added parts to a pre-existing engine, and it's just going to be that just a little bit better, just a little bit smoother, a little bit more lighting or whatnot. But it's not like going from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. It's more like going from a PS5 to a PS5 Pro. It's more like that. It's more a streamlined, more efficient version. It's gonna look better, cooler, faster, light, good lighting, load times, stuff like that. So, in this is the previous roundtable. Um, we all know they talked about the online issues. They talked about the damage traits and consequences. Adding the stagger into the game, and it is gonna slow down the gameplay. I don't care what nobody says, bro. You start getting stunned in between punches and getting pieced up. It's only gonna take 1 or 2 games, and you're gonna be like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to think this through. It's gonna slow down the gameplay, but it's probably for the better. Um, if you like boxing, man, this is what boxing is. Like the things that are coming into this game, it's boxing. It's not UFC. Um, the damage and the traits, all this stuff is good. They also, spoke on stamina a little bit. The front foot fighting, like I said, they're talking about bringing in more punch, a different variation of punches with new mocaps, and the game visuals that we just talked about. So let's go to the next video. This is the more recent one that came out. I don't know. I think it says 9 days ago.
Let's go ahead and jump into what you can expect from.
And we just skipped, the beginning. The beginning of this video is like 13 minutes of them apologizing about the delay. So we're just gonna skip all that. There's a whole bunch of we're sorry.
From our .6 update, enjoy.
So yeah, one of the first things you're going to see is an enhancement to the amount of blood on the face and chest. Essentially more splatters and more drips of blood, as you'd expect to see when you're battering an open wound. We've also deepened the discoloration of the bruising, so you're going to be seeing more darker and more realistic purples and slight reds to simulate the colour of the blood rushing to the surface of the damaged skin. You're also going to be seeing blood on the shorts, so it's not just for the body and gloves now. Punching an open wound will cause the splatters on the shorts, so no more pristine white shorts when you're dripping with blood. We've increased the variety of the cut positions, So they're not always going to spawn in the exact same location. So cuts will still be to the left and right of the face, but this means they can spawn in a few different locations in a given zone. The sweat will also now have a tinge of blood to it. Pretty self-explanatory, but you can expect to see some drops of blood mixed in with the beads of sweat. And we've also added a new zone for the cuts to appear. So damaging the center of your opponent's face can now result in a cut appearing on their nose as well.
Let's talk about damage and stamina. First, a quick reminder about what we aim to accomplish in Undisputed. When it comes to both of these areas, we want the game to feel more consequential than it does today. This means a player should be able to capitalize on an opponent's mistakes, and that players will have meaningful choices that can impact the outcome of a fight. For example, you might choose a fighter like Joe Frazier or Rocky Marciano, who are known for their ability to take an opponent into deep water. In order for that to happen, stamina has to feel consequential, so you can use that as a valid strategy. The same thing is true for damage. We want fighters like Deontay Wilder to feel truly dangerous. This means you can't keep eating power shots from him and stay. A fighter like Joe Frazier or
So I went back on that a little bit. Man, you have to pay attention to the details of what these guys are saying if you want to play this game at a high level. Listen to exactly what this guy is saying. I'm known for, not giving away all the sauce, but here's where some of the sauce is developed, man. Right here, the man is literally saying it.
Rocky Marciano, who are known for their ability to take an opponent into deep water. In order for that to happen, stamina has to feel consequential, so you can use that as a valid strategy. The same thing is true
right there. Stamina has to be consequential so that you could use that as a valid strategy. That is coming to the game.
For damage. We want fighters like Deontay Wilder to feel truly dangerous. This means you can't keep eating power shots from him and stay on your feet. We know that's possible right now, and we're going to address it. So, how will our .6 update get us closer to making Undisputed feel more consequential? We'll start with health and damage first. We've unified the head health and body health into 2 health bars.
Yo, hold up. Right here. Yo, check this out. It has the traits for whatever reasons. I don't know what version of this game that the devs are using, but it has Ricky Haddon's liver destroyer trait on the screen and Jorge Linares lightning hands trait on the screen. That's crazy. I don't know, I really don't know why that's there, but that's something you don't normally see.
With health and damage first. We've unified the head health and body health into 2 health bars. This should make health distribution and entries into Dazed feel more representative of what's happening in the fight overall. We've also added follow-through damage to punches, meaning that if you get hit into Dazed with a really solid punch, some of that damage can actually follow through and your Dazed health will already be partially depleted, meaning it will take less additional damage to get that knockdown. Follow-through damage can also now result in a flash knockdown, which we've been able to reduce the feeling of randomness that currently exists when you see someone flashed and hit the canvas. With stamina, I'll talk about a change in the .6 update and then one to look forward to.
Again, you can see it right here. This dude has 2 traits available. And there's 3 up there, but 2 are available. One's grayed out. And this guy has 1 trait, which, Dalton Smith currently does not have a trait in the game. Dalton Smith is traitless. And I don't believe XU, I don't believe he has 3 traits. He does have traits, but I don't think he has 3. This could be like a career mode type thing, like where I don't know, maybe you can earn traits or something in a career mode. I have no idea, but this could be something like that.
To a bit later on. In .6, you'll see that stamina recovery is now based on a fighter's activity in the previous round, allowing you to better manage their stamina throughout the course of a fight. Throw a ton of punches, and you won't recover as much stamina in between rounds. Or maybe take a round off and throw less punches to give yourself more stamina at the end of a fight. It's not ready for .6.
And that's something interesting too. He just said the stamina will be calculated off of the previous round. Previous round meaning is you're in this round, you're swinging a whole lot, and then you go sit down in the corner. Basically, he's saying because you swung a whole lot this round and you went and sat down in the corner, you're not going to get very much stamina back. But if you go into a round and you take a round off and you literally don't do anything, you'll, I guess, get the regular amount of stamina back, or maybe you'll get bonus stamina because you literally took the round off. That's that's something that you'll have to test out. Test that out to see like what's the regular amount, what's the amount you get when you overthrow, and what's the amount you get when you underthrow. It's possibly three different outcomes.
But in a future update, there will also be further adjustments to movement and loose movement when fighters are low on stamina. This is aimed at increasing the consequences of stamina mismanagement. Currently, if somebody's low on stamina, they can still fly around the ring like it's round one. So there's a missing piece of the puzzle that will close the gap and make stamina feel more consequential. And of course, as we introduce these changes, we'll continue to evaluate how damage and stamina mechanics are impacting fights and make necessary balance tweaks over the course of time. Longer term, we'll also be taking a look at our roster to ensure fighter ratings make sense around these consequential areas and provide clear differences when selecting fighters, which leads us to the next topic, fighter differentiation. There are a lot of great licensed fighters in Undisputed, and it's important they feel unique. And for the upcoming career mode, the choices you make on what fighter attributes to focus on need to feel meaningful as well. It's that foundation around damage and stamina systems we just talked about that will help get us even more uniqueness out of the boxers in Undisputed. With that in mind, here's some things that we'll give attention to across the remainder of early access. There will be further stat balancing of our roster to make sure boxers are as true to form as possible with clear differentiation so you know the right fighter to match up with the way you like to fight. We'll also be looking at our roster to make sure those fighter archetypes are set up on the appropriate boxers. And we'll continue to introduce new traits and to refine the ones already in Undisputed. This is great for personalizing both licensed fighters and custom characters and will be especially important in shaping your career.
So once again, guys, thank you so much for your time, your support, and your patience with.
So as you noticed, they said quite a bit of different stuff on the final roundtable than they said on the previous roundtable, which both of these roundtables are affecting the next patch that's coming out January whenever. The next patch is the first patch of 2024. So on this video right here, they didn't mention the stagger system. They didn't mention the new mocaps and the punch variations. They didn't mention any of the speed stuff that they're tweaking outside of them slowing down loose movement when you're tired. They also didn't, I'm sure they're not gonna put out a whole lot of details, but it's kind of like, you're gonna have to beta test this thing yourself. Tired to one person is not tired to another. So I'm sure that may come into effect as well. Some fighters may get tired faster than others, meaning like how do I put that into words? Like 40% stamina for me might be different than 40% stamina for Tommy. I'm at 40%, he's at 40%, but maybe I have a bigger, if I have a bigger pool of stamina, my 40% is still greater than the next guy's 40% if his stamina pool is smaller. Will I move faster? Will I move slower? At what point will I get slow? if my stamina pool is bigger, will I slow down at 50%? Meanwhile, other people won't slow down until they get to 40, or vice versa, or whatever. Like, is it going to be clear cut across the board? Kind of hard to say. And them trying to they're gonna rework all the fighter stats and numbers and things like that. I think that's a great idea to make the fighters feel true to form, more diversity, more fight styles. You can introduce more tactics, more problems. So I think that's a good thing to do, to not have the boxing feel stale, to not make every single fight feel the same. Or maybe you fight a fighter and this fighter has this weakness, and so the next time you play the game, you're like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna pick a fighter that can exploit the weakness that this fighter has. That would be cool. Another thing that would be nice to see, which we're probably not going to see in the beta, probably won't see this until the game fully releases or something like that. Maybe like one of the last patches, if there's actually like online fighter lobbies similar to UFC 5. Like you don't pick your fighter before you're matched up with your opponent. You match up with your opponent first, and then you choose your fighters. Kind of like a custom lobby. That would be nice to see that in the game. It would be nice to see it in the game in the beta, but I wouldn't hold my breath. That probably won't come until the game is fully released, or maybe never, maybe not at all. So there are a lot of things to look forward to. I expect this patch to be pretty amazing, pretty spectacular, seeing as we had to wait for a very long time, and I hope since we had to wait as long as we did, we get more than 3 fighters. They were talking about the roster as well the last second. Hopefully we get 6 to 9 fighters. 9 would be optimal, respectful. We missed a patch, I would say arguably 2 patches in the time period that we've been waiting. Arguably missed 2 patches, and we didn't get 2 or 1. We got none. So that's like 6 fighters, and we're waiting on 1. So throw us a bone. Let us get 9 fighters for being patient. Let us get 9 fighters. And they also said that they're gonna spread out how long they're gonna spread out the patches. They're not gonna be so close together, I guess, as in like a month and a half or 2 months, or probably not even 3 months. I'm guessing they're gonna be closer to they're probably gonna be closer to 3 to 6 months apart. And if the patches are gonna be that far apart, definitely need to drop a lot of fighters in those windows, so people don't get bored and they have a lot of variation and fighter choices, to keep the beta testing, the early access rolling until the game comes out. This game has a lot of potential. Absolutely love this game. I'm absolutely critical of this game, and at Play Undisputed, I am still available for hire. I am still available for hire anytime. I think these guys are doing a good job. Yeah, I'm critical. I talk a lot of crap. Come watch me on Twitch, or on Twitch as BZR 1986 Twitch TV, or you can catch my videos on YouTube. If you like my content, please like, follow, subscribe, all the free stuff, and I'll try to bring y'all guys more content. All right, I'm out.